Thank you for opening up your process so that I could gain some perspective about the associative movement. Several things immediately jump out for me regarding your desire and leadership aims. And so I want to say the following, both as question and sometimes suggestion. So the final, or the last speaker talked about the development that you have achieved and why it is important to now take the movement to the level of increased participation. Several questions that cross all 5 or 6 presentations. The first question is around leadership. Is there currently a intergenerational associative leadership cadre? Because several speakers have mentioned the role of youth and preparing youth for opportunity to advance the goals of the associative organization. So a number of things to consider. I heard that you have a way of doing business, that you have bylaws, and are these bylaws common? Because one of the things that would, I think, provide stronger entry to the decision-making in which the associative leadership in Portugal would like to be represented, means to me that how do you communicate your accomplishments as a combined body, or as a body joined together? I think that I also heard a code of operation, one or several things that would go into that code, is that you want to deepen your individual responsibility to be a responsibility for the associative movement as a representative voice for civic engagement and participation. I also heard that the associative movement does provide training, and so I wanted to ask more about the leadership curriculum so that you would have a baseline for leadership that is a common set of expectations. I also heard that there are often dual roles or two roles that you are fulfilling as leaders. That one of the roles is to manage, and the other role is to provide vision and context. So one of the questions and suggestions that I ask you to consider as you further organize into action, that annually, is there or are there 2 or 3 primary objectives that the associative movement would like to engage local government and national government around, and in this engagement, do you currently use in your process committees or work groups where you have a common understanding and a strong understanding that communicates the interest for the larger associative movement? The idea of strength in numbers, I think, clearly comes forward. In groups as I have heard. However, I think there can be greater benefits by really focusing on matters that concern the overall association. As I heard leaders talk about youth, my question is very similar for the youth or the auxiliary. What do you see as their progression to become future leaders where you now sit? Because your wisdom, individually and collectively, will be very important, in my opinion, in the months and years ahead So as coaches, and what I mean by coach in your sport terms, is that you are in fact training and developing leaders who will take up the interest of the associative movement. So sharing in the work will require, I think, some teamwork or teaming. The very things that I hear you talking about. And so, over the next year, I think that there are several action steps for the associative movement. I think one of those is to really begin to communicate what your purpose and intentions are better in a collective way, in a singular voice. The second is, I hear the programmatics also means that you will have contact to better establish and hear from one another what your agenda is locally, as well as across Portugal, so that you can, what I would say is join hands in a stronger, more defined way as leaders of purpose.
Vamos agora passar a um segundo grupo de perguntas. Desde já dizer que muito dificilmente conseguiremos dar a palavra a todos os colegas que estão inscritos. Vamos procurar ser o mais sintéticos possíveis e mais, irmos direitos à questão central que nos traz aqui. Como já foi dito, não podemos discutir tudo. Então agora é o Jacinto Domingos e a seguir o Fernando Cipriano.